Social media can be a wonderful place sometimes. You get to hear stories and hear from people that you might not normally, if you don't see them all the time face to face. And a post I saw from the Brown Butterbean, Dave Letele, who is a regular guest on this show, often we're talking about his incredible work at helping people lose weight and get fit and change their lives. But this one was a bit of a different post. It was talking about his dad, who's also called Dave, actually Dave Letele's little Dave, even though he's probably taller than his dad. So the post that little Dave put up was talking about his dad. He said his dad was ward of the state at 9 for burning down his school. He was the president of the Auckland mongrel mob. He was a bank robber, imprisoned and sentenced to 10 years when little Dave was 5. He was a drug grower, and one day he gave it all away, was rebaptised, and he now serves the community. And I just thought that was the most incredible story, to have a man that was so ingrained, I guess, in one way of living, to turn it all around and be sitting here today talking on national radio, a changed man. Little Dave, you must be very proud of your dad.
Yeah, I'm very proud, and I talk about my father often, and when I'm doing my speeches about his journey, and it's very inspiring because, he's come from a really out there, past, and he's turned it around. I think, especially for our youth and our lost people, they need to understand that it's possible. And it's, again, like with weight and health, it's a lot easier to take the advice from someone who's been there and done it. And like Dad says, give them a shortcut. They don't have to go down the path that he went down.
So let's start at the very beginning, Dave Senior. How did you end up finding yourself going down that path, that bad path when you were young?
We were just raised in, I don't know if you recall, when a lot of the early migration from the islands. My dad was here at 1950, and we ended up in South Auckland when it was just being newly developed out there. So a lot of it was mud flaps out there. I think a lot of it was boredom, sort of getting together with other like-minded young ones, which just spiraled out of control in the end.
Big Dave, Can I call you Big Dave?
Yes.
Okay. And Big Dave, when you hear the things, some quite key moments in your life, like burning down a school and going to jail that Toni read out there, and knowing how much you've changed in the journey you've been on, what does that make you think now? Is that just such a different person to what you are now? Does that almost feel like a stranger to you?
Yeah, no, I often think about it, and I sort of put it in a way where those that we work with today, because we run a charity, Grace Foundation, and we deal mainly with guys that are incarcerated, both women and men, and very similar journeys. And I just sort of wondered one day that, a lot of our people, if I can put it that way, we're sort of born into environments that give us bad pole positions.
Yep.
In which just to see a start line we just don't see it. And for many of them, just to get to the start line is almost... it just becomes so difficult because of the lack of resources, the lack of, in terms of the environment they live in, almost no chance at all just to get to the start line of this life journey.
Little Dave, can I just talk to you for a second? Because as I read out there, for 10 years, your dad was in prison when you were just 5 years old. How did that impact you?
At 5, I didn't really get it. All I remember is the panic in my mum. That's all I just remember one day my mum comes home in a panic, packing stuff, and then I ended up living in Australia with my Samoan grandparents, very strict, his parents, and I was raised by them. But what I do remember is when I was 21, when he got caught for cultivating marijuana, and then that's when I went right off the rails myself, and I ended up putting a knife through my chest one night, and I remember Dad would come, he came with prison guards, and I was just really angry, and that's how I felt, angry at the world and at my father.
When talking to Dave Jr. and Dave Senior, Dave Letele, he's the man you will know. He was the Brown Butterbean boxer and also now helping New Zealand's kids and adults lose weight. And before the break, we spoke about the hard life little Dave had when his father went to prison at 5. He was away for 10 years, and then when he came out, little Dave saw his dad get caught for growing drugs, and he was so upset by it all that he put a knife through his chest. He's here to tell the story today. But Dave Senior, we want to get your reaction to that. What was that like for you as a father? You get out of jail and you see the impact it's had on your son.
You know, it was super devastating to me as a dad, and I think it was the start of having to realign the way I think or the way I thought at the time. I mean, my wife and I, you know, it just crushed us to see what the impact it had on not only David but also my other two children. You know, because Dave's mum and I, you know, we met at the age of 15. We've been together now 45 years, and it's just unreal when I think back just what I did in regards to pulling my wife and the children through that part of the journey in the early stages, but just to see the impact it had on my children, you know, I really started to seriously think, what am I doing, and really make some choices in life that I had to make to influence not only my children but today, but also now my grandchildren. Which is I see it as a second chance to get things right in regards to being a parent, and no, it was definitely a thunderbolt in regards to, you know, when these things happen to your children because of some of your behaviours, dysfunctions.
So how do we spread that message? How do we give other kids or other families that are making poor decisions the opportunity to have equal opportunity? How do we break that cycle?
Yeah. Well, all I know today and what we do at Grace Foundation, we're a non-government funded organisation. We've been going now 13 years, and where we can be of some impact is to work with the parents. We're talking about people that have done massive amounts of time, right from state ward, right through graduating all the way through the prison system, and working with them to just give them a picture as to what it may look like if they would just get their minds thinking another way.
Because it's not as shiny, is it? I mean, the gang life, it looks good from the outside. There's parties, there's motorcycles, there's cars, there's money, there's girls. So how do you sell the other side of that?
Well, when we talk to youth, and I do it a lot, you know, I make sure I tell them, because like you said, crime is glamorized, the life of a gangster is glamorized, and sometimes in these areas, really deprived areas, if you're not that good at school and you can't play sport, the only people you look around with money are gang members and drug dealers. So that's what you have to aspire to. Geez, I hate being poor, I hate it, and I hated it. So what am I going to do, you know, to make some money? And that's what it is. So what I say to them is, look, this is the other side. We had warehouses full of cars, but what's the point of the warehouse when my first cousin, my uncle's daughter, hung herself in that warehouse? What's the point of all these material things? The pain that I got when my mum told me that the warehouse has been raided, you know, that's what I say, the other side. Everything, crime's taken away from us.
Can I just ask you both at the moment, gangs are a really hot political topic, and we've got the election this year, and there is a suggestion that gangs perhaps aren't that bad, and it's a sense of family and they're trying to do good. Do you believe that?
Well, I think a lot of the hardened gang members that I've met throughout the years, I think when I look at them and funny enough, I'm actually getting offspring of those same gang members that I was raised in South Auckland coming through our homes now. And, you know, when I see these surnames and I say, I know that name, and then I say, it's your dad so-and-so. So, you know, it's just a cycle going round and around again. So what, but I look at some of the guys, the old guys that I was raised with, and I can see if given deep down, I would say that they would give it all away, but for whatever reason, they're so entrenched.
Yep.
And we're talking about guys that are with all the markings on the facials, and you know, how do they walk away from that?
How did you walk away from it then?
Well, I just came to the realization one day that I had to. And I at the time, I'd just been released. I was still seen as a senior member. And I just woke up one day and said, you know what, this is not working. The guys have, you know, over the years that I've been away, I come back and nothing's really changed. It's still the same old.
So I never asked them this question. So Who did you? What was the process of
To getting out.
Getting out.
Well, the process for me was I just grabbed all the books that had all the numbers in it, because I looked after at the time the money side of things. Packed the books up, went round to the present leader of that day, who's now passed away. A number of these guys have passed away just through indulging heart attacks because of it, and just laid the books on the table and said, brother, that's it for me. And that was it. That day he just gave me a hug, because these are guys that I done a lot of time with. So I know there's a lot of this other talk where guys find it difficult to walk away, but for me, enough was enough. And
we've had cousins that have asked the same thing. They've joined because they see the trappings they see, and then they would ask my dad and uncle, how do you leave?
Yeah.
And they would say the same thing.
Well, I feel like you're doing God's work, really, by being the person and the example of someone that has. And the fact that you are now lending that knowledge and that experience to others is an incredible thing. Dave Letele, Small Dave, Big Dave, thank you both so much. And I know you're going to turn this chat into a podcast, and I think there'll be a lot of people interested to hear that. So when you get it all together, we will be here to let people know about it.
Don't forget, World's Biggest Boot Camp, March 22, Eden Park, gates open 10 a.m.
Boom.